You are what you eat. You've probably heard that term many times before, but we'd like to give you some new concepts to consider.
So you've probably heard the statement, you are what you eat, 100 times, but we'd really like you to think about those words, you are what you eat. You see, the fact is that on a daily basis, your cells are regenerating, and have you ever considered, where does that come from? You see, what you eat actually becomes a part of you, and if you eat well, then you'll feel absolutely great too, and what you put on the inside reflects on the outside. You see, the fuel that you put into your body will actually contribute to how proficient and how good you feel. So consider, if you have a petrol car and you put diesel in it, which is the wrong fuel, the car won't run, and you're no different. So when we say you are what you eat, what we're asking you to consider is not about diets. We're actually asking you to consider that good food will make you feel well. Now, this is a schema that is particularly poignant to Nick because this had a huge effect on him when he was a young man.
I think when we say you are what you eat, I would ask you just to consider it's not acceptable to some days to feel sluggish. And I think a lot of people just think, oh, I'm feeling a bit sluggish today, I don't feel as good as I did yesterday. Literally, what you put into your body will determine how you feel. And this is poignant to me because when I was 20 years of age, I got to a point where I ended up in hospital. My skin had turned grey, I was severely ill, and I had a consultant came to see me and he said, look, you've got an inflammatory bowel disease known as ulcerative colitis. And basically what that is, it's abscesses, it's ulcers within my large bowel or my colon. And he said it's that bad that it's actually turned into a condition called toxic megacolon, where basically we can save your life though, don't worry about that, because what we will do, we will take your bowel away, we'll give you an ileostomy and give you a colostomy bag and you'll be okay. 20 years of age, I said, well, what's the alternative? And they said, no, that is, we will save your life by doing that. It's not something that I wanted. So I decided, I made a big decision because my father had always told me, Nick, if you want to find the answer to something, go into the library. All the answers are there. So that's what I decided to do. I signed myself out of hospital. I went into the library and I read the medical books, a lot of books that I didn't even understand. However, I realised, not from the medical books, but I realised that if you have open wounds and you've constantly got things passing those wounds, they will never heal. A bit like having a sore, if you cut your hand and you keep picking it, it will never heal. And in the same way, I thought, well, what if my bowel's the same way? I've always got food going through there, so it's never allowing these open wounds to heal. So whilst I was still on the medication, I decided to spend a week without having any food, just having water. And then I looked at having the world's basic food, which is brown rice, and I had 6 small bowls every day. And I started to feel better. I then introduced one food at a time, and I made a note of how that food reacted with me. What I discovered from that was that, without question, there is not a diet on the planet that suits everybody, because different foods react with different people in a different way. So some foods that were considered healthy, the best foods to eat, actually made me ill. I ended up with 3 lists. I had foods that made me ill, foods that made me feel okay, and foods that made me feel amazing. So I just went on having the foods that made me feel amazing and the foods that made me feel okay. And the foods that made me ill, I disregarded them altogether. Within 18 months, I managed to come off all my medication, and I've not had any medication for my bowel since, and I'm perfectly okay.
Now, we're not asking you to go against medical advice, of course, and Nick did take a huge risk. Fortunately, it paid off.
What we'd like you to consider is having a food diary and making a list of all the foods that you eat, and you will notice trends of the days that you feel great and the days that you don't feel so good. And the days that you don't feel so good, look at what those foods were, because the reason why you don't feel so good is because you've eaten something that your body hasn't really liked and it's not been the right fuel for your body. And those foods, you should look at taking them out of your diet. But keeping a food diary will give you the answers to the best fuel to run your body and for you to feel amazing.
Eat well, keep hydrated, and the consequence of that is that you will feel far better, you'll feel far more positive, more energetic, and ultimately this schema is something that's so important to us because it actually saved Nick's life.